Thank you for joining me today. In a few sentences, who are you?
I am Bella. I'm currently 28 years old. I live in Delaware. I have two kids. I'm married. My husband and I bought our first house. I'm active in my program of AA. Church is important to me. I love animals. I have a dog and a cat. Besides being a coach, I'm a local operations manager for a company called View Stay, and also in the middle of getting my real estate license, which is part of the job. Yeah, I graduated with a bachelor's in psychology. I played lacrosse. So that's kind of just me.
I want to do something a little unconventional.
Okay.
Let's jump to a moment when you were like, how the heck did I get here?
I lived on the streets in Phoenix for like a good 6 to 8 months, and I would say that was when it really hit me. I had the idea of like maybe I want help for myself rather than doing it for someone else. I didn't have a place to like sleep and would drive out to the desert and sleep or maybe stay at a motel once or twice a week. So
When you say you were on the streets in Phoenix, like I'm trying to visualize, because being on the streets means different things for different people, right? For me to visualize this, like, did you have a bag of clothes? What were you wearing on you? Did you have any friends in Phoenix? What were you eating? What were you drinking? Like, give me a picture of that.
So what that looked like was I had gotten kicked out of my second to last treatment center. I was up in Prescott, Arizona. It's really like rehab centered kind of town. And I had had a guy from Phoenix that I had previously met in an IOP. He came and picked me up. We were going to live at his parents' house. That lasted a couple days and then it set off, and so I did have him the whole time, but we had a car. Yeah, kind of just having all my possessions that could fit inside of that car, which was really weird because I still cared. I mean, sometimes, but I still cared to some degree about like trying to get dressed. But it was like going to like an RV park to take a shower at 3 in the morning, or having people we were getting high with that were at a motel that we could go to for a night. It wasn't until that period of time that I like had my first overdoses, and I started overdosing a lot in that period of usage. And I don't really know about food. I mean, it was like, stealing from a Circle K. I remember I would eat like donuts and like a Sprite in the morning that he would steal. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what else we really did eat. I don't think I could have done it all by myself. I mean, because he was older, he had lived that way previously, which I had not. So he kind of, I don't know. I mean, he really took care of me. It was just like a different level of half a year of just a bender. I was like a disgusting version of myself. I like was picking my skin really badly, and it got to a really bad point.
This might be a weird question to ask and a difficult one to answer, and you might even not have an answer. Were there any good moments during that time?
I mean, I think there were definitely good moments. I got really comfortable being in a car. And so it was like I learned to almost like have that as my safe place. Yeah, of course there were fun times. Like you're nonstop getting high with doing kind of whatever. I mean, I liked him a lot. The guy, everything was super intense, highs and lows. At one point we decided we were going to go to detox together. Most detoxes I've been to, like they're waiting for you to come in. This one was like almost, I guess, more of like a crisis center. So when we got there, we had to wait for like 7 hours, and you're like, coming down, and there was two wings to the detox, and we thought we would get placed in the same one if we like acted like we didn't know each other. We didn't. I don't think I had started the methadone, but I think he already had been on it. So he was like getting dosed. So he didn't have a horrible like detox. And that was like one of my worst ever. And then after that, he was gonna like get us into like a couple sober living after we left that detox. And so we went to this couple sober living, and I don't know how long we were there, not even a week, but we like got a bedroom set up, and we were gonna do this thing and whatever. And he had said like he was still gonna smoke meth, but we weren't gonna like use anything else. And we, were instantly using again. So it was like we like wanted to motivate each other to try to get better, but it was not that. I'm really grateful that I experienced that, all of it with him, because a lot of people would have like left me on the side of the road. Yeah, there definitely were good times. I don't know.
It's confusing, you know?
It is.
You're not also the version of you are now. So, like, to measure what was good and what was bad, it's a totally different person. Okay, so let's rewind now. So, you got there, you were on the streets in Phoenix, Arizona. When Bella was like 5 to 10 years old, did anyone see this coming? What were you like as a kid?
I had a great life. I was a pretty feisty child. I mean, I was a happy, normal, well-rounded child. But yeah, I had a big personality. My parents would say I was like a Madonna. I had had some trauma when I was 12, so it was just an isolated event. I think that's when things really took a negative turn. I had gone on a spring break trip with like our closest family friends, and without getting into too much detail, but it was like my parents tell me now, like that after I came home from that trip, it was like an instant I was a different person. And I had already like tried like smoking weed, drinking at that point by the time that event happened. I was actually drunk when it happened. So there was already part of me that was like obviously dealing with something. Yeah, it was like that event really changed pretty much everything about myself. I didn't ask for help with that. So like all the ways that it came out were like that I was just having pretty like severe mental health issues, and I was self-harming and acting out. My parents like didn't know how to help me. What makes me like the most sad is just all that they had to go through as parents, and because I was this like normal, special, big, bright personality, and then that all kind of, changed. So, especially trauma, like it does things to us that we're are completely subconscious, that we're not aware of. Had that like event happen, I don't know if I maybe would have gone down the same path.
And I don't want to make you uncomfortable by you having to talk about it, but I'm assuming that someone hurt you in this situation that you're talking about. And I think for listeners, it might be helpful to hear someone hurts someone, and then for whatever reason, we feel the need to harm ourselves, whether that's through physical self harm, addiction could be considered self harm, or through other various forms. Can you explain to people that don't understand why you started self harming after someone hurt you?
When you're that young, it's like you don't really know how. I didn't know how to process it. I was ashamed, but I was also confused because there was parts of me that thought that I was like attracted to this person. That was super confusing. I don't know. It was like, I guess the first time that I felt like I was like, I don't know, in love with someone in some weird way. And I wish that I could have opened up about it and felt comfortable, but because of the fact that it was so confusing for me as a child, I was 12, the guy was, 17, and I've always been someone who's felt I feel like shame and guilt like very, very, very strongly, and it was hard because it was my like neighbors, so my parents' best friends, one of my best friends. I don't know, because I didn't even like think about like sex or boys or anything like that at that point in life. So I internalized it. I had gone to a church camp like shortly after it happened, and I like said it out loud there to like a group of people. And I don't remember how like people reacted to it, but like clearly you would think that that would be something that like you would like this is an adolescent child in a opportunity where I felt safe or comfortable and I shared this information, and I would think like someone would have reached out or told my parents or something that could have like gotten me the help, which again, it's nobody's fault because I was responsible, I guess, for asking for help. But my ways of coping were like the focus. So my parents like put me in therapy and DBT and all this stuff that was supposed to help like the symptoms of the real problem.
What was the real problem?
I think the real problem was just shame. Everything in my life has kind of stemmed from. It was like a vicious cycle of feeling bad about, who I was because of something that happened or something that I did, and then turning back kind of to the same behaviors or things to feel better. And so it just kept me stuck.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's get into the specific behaviors.
12 to 14 or 15, it was a lot of the self-harming, very emotional, very angry. Like I would have like very big literal like freakouts and really only to my like parents or family. I was super depressed, kind of withdrew from everything, and at that point I started smoking a lot of K2. Obviously, at that age, like my access to be like a regular user was not a lot. So I drank and smoked weed or K2 or whatever when I could access it, I guess, with friends. My parents were normal, so it wasn't like I was growing up in a home where that stuff was available. I guess alcohol, but and then I got my first boyfriend when I was 15, and him and I just, I started doing more drugs. I had a lot more access to it. Like his mom was a lot more kind of willing to host the shenanigans, and so it was a lot more accessible. I had sex with him, which is what I considered like losing my virginity by choice with someone that I wanted to do it with, and that like set me back into a big place of feeling really shitty about myself. It just felt wrong. Like it just felt wrong. And I still like have a weird relationship with sex, even with my husband. But when that boyfriend broke up with me, that is then when my behaviors really switched to like being very promiscuous. And I was, 15, 16. And yeah, I had sex with a lot of people for really no good reason in high school, just because I was so desperately seeking a validation and I guess love and like closeness. But, because when you're young like that, it's like you think that's what people want, you do it, and then you realize like that's that is all they wanted. And when you're like in high school and stuff, kind of it gets to a point where everybody kind of knows everything. I was kind of like this slutty teenage girl and I partied and I experienced a lot of firsts before, I guess, like a lot of kids that I grew up with. I could become a very scary person. I pulled a knife out on, I guess, my family. My dad had to like tackle me to the floor. I don't know what I was planning on doing with it, I think it was like a dramatic threat, like I was gonna harm myself. And one thing I remember very vividly, I had like yelled out to I guess my mom and my dad, and I was like, "Why does nobody love me?" And my dad said, "Because you're unlovable." That was him in like a fit of anger because he's having to tackle his teenage daughter to the ground. And I think that's something that he's regretted for the rest of his life. But those things, again, impact you subconsciously in ways that are difficult because I know my dad loves me, but that wasn't like I couldn't differentiate like reason that I can today in that way. But I can say today, like, I think a lot of it was done for attention. And I don't know why I was so desperate to get attention, good, bad, or indifferent. Then I was sent away to therapeutic boarding school at 16.
Did you feel unlovable, and were you wanting attention, you think, or were you wanting love?
I think probably the core was that I wanted love. I wasn't, I guess, self-aware to the point of like, these are things that I'm doing because I want a reaction out of someone. Like texting my parents a picture of cuts that I did. Stuff like that is like, that's not normal.
If someone texted you a picture of cuts on their wrists, what would you text back?
I would understand that there's a reason someone feels safe enough to do that because it is a cry for help. Um, I've been there too, and how can I make you feel seen and heard and that you matter?
I think what stood out was when you said that you matter. Because when you talk about the shame and feeling unlovable and after what happened to you with that guy and when you went on vacation, I could see a part of you feeling like you didn't matter. Is that true? I don't know.
Yeah, I guess, but again, I was so young and I think a lot of this was going on in my brain without being aware, and all I know was that I was angry and I was hurting. I think there's also an aspect because I had drank and there was that extra layer of I'm responsible as well, which, continues that shame. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, there's something about an experience like that where you can conceptually understand that you hold shame, that you carry guilt, and yet does it ever fully go away?
Yeah, I don't think so. I don't think it's a constant thing that it used to be, that drove every decision that I made. But do I still have times? I mean, even right now, like talking about this stuff, there are moments, a lot of times, like when I'm like going to sleep, not at night, but specifically like if I'm trying to lay down to take a nap. Like I'll have one random thought that then triggers another thought that triggers another thought, and all of a sudden I'm thinking about the person that I used to be. And so yeah, while I don't feel that I live in shame anymore, when I have those things come in, it's still very powerful, and it can affect me.
So you started talking about therapeutic boarding school. How long were you there for? And was that your only bout of treatment?
So as an adolescent, that was my first like residential treatment, and I was at a program called Sedona Sky Academy, and I was there for a year and 13 days. I graduated high school from there as well. Starting in my early 20s, I went to all kinds of detoxes and rehabs.
Was any of it helpful?
In my therapeutic boarding school, if nothing else, it kept me safe and alive for that period of time when I was really on a dark path. Going to the different rehabs, there were some that were more, that I learned more, but you pick up a lot of tools on the way. You meet a lot of very fascinating people and learn a lot from them. And it all depends on what my headspace was going into it.
Did you ever rebel or do sneaky things in treatment?
But yeah, I can't even get started. But yes,
Tell me one that like you can say on camera.
the second to last place what I was talking about is because I had that same guy drive up. So I had gotten this sponsor because something was off about her. I could just tell. So I had convinced her to let me use her phone. So I was using her phone to call my ex-boyfriend. She like set it up for this guy to drive down because he was going to bring me a burner phone, the guy that I ended up being with after I left. And so he dropped off a burner phone. I had sex with him in his car, like outside of it was like two houses. The rehab had like a center and then two like houses. Had sex with him, got the burner phone, and I took 2 fentanyl pills from him. And I was saving them for a rainy day. I never ended up using them while I was still there. I don't know, I was saving them for a rainy day. I was like, when shit gets really bad. So I had this burner phone, and I was like on social media and like communicating primarily with that guy. Anyways, I had told one girl about it, and she ended up snitching on me. And it sucked because it was like I was like getting away with it for like 3 weeks. And this was the second time I had snuck a burner phone into a treatment center, but it was a different treatment center. And after they went through the burner phone is when they kicked me out. There was talk about how I had these 2 pills. They never found the 2 pills. I passed a drug test, so it was a good thing that I didn't use them. Well, not really, because I got kicked out anyways. But yeah, and I was always in a rehab romance. That was like what I lived for, because it was like,
Did
what
any
else?
of them end up fine, or were they all super toxic?
Yeah, pretty toxic. I would like write notes to the guys and stuff. And one of the guys, I think I was like 23 and he was like 19, which is like, that's bad. I mean, to me, that's bad.
Yeah.
You're only working with so much.
Yeah, you have those treatment goggles on for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, I was really bad. And that's why I think I went to so many different programs, was because I would get kicked out or leave prematurely, So and then
So,
sorry, this is my actual last rehab is when I got pregnant with my toddler. So I got
I didn't
pregnant
re-
while I was in that rehab. Yes.
oh
So
shit.
the one that I'm talking about where I had the pills and the phone was my second to last. That was an all girls one. After I was like on the streets for that half a year, and then I went to my last one, and I conceived my toddler there.
With a fellow
Yes.
person in treatment.
Yes. And I had sex with 2 different guys while I was there. So I don't actually know who her biological father is. Neither
To
of the
this
options
day.
are good. To this day, yeah, because the guy that I thought, like, oh my God, I can't even get into it. It's too much. But yes, to this day, I think I know, because one of them's like dark hair, brown eyes. The other one's like lighter hair, blue eyes, and my daughter's like light, and I'm obviously more dark complected, but sure.
Crazy question. If you had to pick which one genetically that you wish she came from, which would it be?
Honestly, neither. I mean,
Fair.
honestly, like I can't pick because they're both probably the one that I think it is because he's just a drug addict. He's just a classic drug addict. I think he probably has a good heart. The other one, I've seen what he looks like when he's sober, and he is a father to two little girls already before I met him, and he was a piece of shit. So I would say the other one, it's like he's just in active addiction, can't get his shit together. So the other one's just like a horrible person, I guess.
This might be, you don't have to get into this if you don't want to, but it's pretty hard well, okay, hold on, let me back up. In some treatment centers, it is hard to get to a spot where you can have sex with someone. You did it twice in the same one. Was this one just not well regulated? How did you get away with that?
It was called American Addiction Centers or something it was in Mississippi, and it was like a big open campus. The detox was one building, and then there was like a cafeteria, and it was like an old camp or something. So
Hmm,
there was a lake in the middle. So although there were cameras and stuff, it was just there was a lot of open space. Because I have been to rehabs where it's like you're in a building, and can go
yes.
outside to smoke. But so
Yeah.
yeah, it was like outside in the woods type thing.
The thing about this is, you went in for promiscuous behavior, drugs, and yet while you were in rehab, whatever numbers those were, you were finding ways to have sex with guys and you were still getting drugs. You were getting a burner phone. So did you want to get better or did it ebb and flow? Like sometimes in treatment, you're like one day you'd wake up and you're like, okay, I'll try today, I'll go to groups. But then other days you're like, no, I'm gonna try to get 2 fentanyl pills and have sex with someone.
I would say until that last one, which, yeah, I still had sex while I was there, the one in Mississippi, but that was the first time that I had asked my parents, like, I want to go to rehab. And I had to leave that guy in Arizona and fly to Mississippi because I was taking methadone. And so it was like at the dose that I was at, not everywhere would detox you because it's so sketchy to detox off methadone. Yeah, I mean, the sex thing, that was something that I struggled with badly, but I think as far as like actually getting sober, I don't know, because when I first got there, there was a part of me that still wanted to like feed into like that same like badass type persona. And so yeah, I initially wanted to go because I wanted to get better that time. And then, I did. After I left there, like, yes, I had had sex with several people, but I think that was they're coming from different places. And I got sober and
When did you
I
find out you were pregnant?
a month and a half after leaving that rehab. So I left that treatment center. The guy that I thought I was like gonna be with, he was from Mississippi. I went to a sober living and lasted like a week and a half there until I had him come pick me up, and then we were living in his parents' garage, and we were sober for like I guess like a month and a half, maybe 2 months. I found out I was pregnant during that time, so I assumed he was the father because I had been like having sex with him consistently. The other guy was just a one and done thing. I had ongoing like court stuff back in Arizona because I had gotten a second DUI I had drug charges included with it. And so when I was out in Mississippi, knew I was pregnant, sober, I found out I was going to have to go serve time in jail back in Arizona. So
Okay. So you get pregnant in rehab, leave rehab, find out you're pregnant while living with this guy in Mississippi, at the same time, find out you're gonna have to serve time.
yeah. Then I had to go back from Mississippi to Arizona. So during that time, right before, and again, we were sober for like a couple days before I went back or when I had to go to jail, fly back, me and that guy like relapsed together and started using.
While you were pregnant.
Mm, yeah, I used for like 3 days of my pregnancy in entirety doesn't make it okay, but the most fucked up part was so I had to fly out of Memphis, Tennessee to Phoenix to go to jail. And there was another kid that we had met in that rehab. We asked him for fentanyl, and he met us at like 3 o'clock in the morning. It was like an early morning flight. We got high. It was like that guy in the front, me in the passenger, or the guy that I was like with, and then the random guy from rehab who had the drugs. And I overdosed. So I overdosed at like 2.5 months pregnant. And that was what was so fucking scary to me, because the guy next to me that I was like with, he had no idea. It was the guy in the back who was like, yo, dude, I think she's, like OD'd. And the guy dropped me off at the airport at like 4 o'clock in the morning after I had just came to from an overdose. So
There's a baby forming inside of you and you're high as fuck and you're going to jail. What was going through your mind during that time? If anything at all?
I was super disconnected from my pregnancy, which is funny because I'm so like obsessed with being a mom. But I was super disconnected from my pregnancy because, again, I think it was a lot of shame, especially after jail when I moved back in with my parents, because I was like, didn't have the guy around. I was like alone, pregnant. I think that's what it was. It wasn't that I wasn't excited to be a mom or I didn't like love the baby growing inside of me. There was a lot of shame around how it happened and the situation that I was bringing this child into the world in. Going to jail was good for me, and that's when I moved to Delaware and moved back in with my parents, and my life is all of the things that it is today because of that. And
Because of moving back with your parents or because of jail and then moving back?
now jail didn't do anything. Like, it was like, it just was what it was. I didn't
How
have
long?
like, I was
How
in there
long?
for 30 days. It's not short, but it's not long compared to what people do. But
True.
I was super sick because I was like in the first parts of my pregnancy. But yeah, I was in jail for 30 days for my second DUI. I think I had like a hard time accepting it at first because I thought that I would like somehow get medically discharged because I was so sick from being pregnant, but it didn't happen. I thought I could, swing one last good one, but it
Yeah,
didn't
pull
happen.
pull a few strings from the jail cell. It doesn't quite work that way.
I know, and I really thought it was just shitty. It was mainly shitty because the food sucks.
What
Food's
type of
awful.
what would you get? Like, I don't even know.
Pretty much like just slop type meals. But then because I was pregnant, they gave me two extra like meals, and it was bologna and bread and milk, maybe an apple. But it was like a special thing because, like, obviously when you're pregnant, you need more, nutrients. But like, I don't drink milk plain. I don't eat bologna. So I would like microwave the bread and like make it, I don't know, like a little bit crunchier.
You would try to treat
Yeah.
yourself a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It was all horrible. That was the other part. There was a lady in there who was like seriously like, it was like she was having a bad trip, but it lasted for like 2.5 weeks, to the point where she was like doing the shit and peeing everywhere, that kind of stuff. Like, and she would bang and scream all hours of the night. And that was really hard. I told my mom, I said, if I can like picture what it would sound like to be in the gates of hell, this is what it would sound like. It was awful because it did not stop. And it's like, how is this bitch not passed out by now? Like, I think she was just very mentally ill.
So, all right. So I haven't been to jail. Most people haven't been to jail. What's a typical day in jail? And also, what does the jail cell look like? Is it all gray? What does it look like? What does it smell like? What are the sounds of jail? Do they ever play music?
No, but they would roll in there were like TVs. I don't remember what you could watch, but they would roll in like a flat screen TV certain days of the week, and we could put on DVDs, and that was pretty much the best thing that you could do. Otherwise, like I had a Bible while I was in there. So breakfast would be at like 4 o'clock in the morning. So if you didn't get up, and it was like you walk in, because they're like pods, I guess. So there's like pods. This was the woman's pod. And it was like you walk in, there was showers on the right, which are just like hanging curtains, like, out in the open, and then there was, like, I don't know, 16 or 18 different cells, and most people had a roommate. I did not have a roommate except for, like, 3 days the whole time I was there because I was pregnant and I got to be on the bottom bunk. Breakfast was super early, so if you didn't get up, you missed it. They'd take us outside for, like, 45 minutes, just I guess people could work out. There'd be certain hours where we could be, like, out in the open of that pod, and then certain times we had to be, like, in our cell. But, yeah, the cell was just, like, a metal toilet, a metal sink, and then, like, a little, like, obviously not glass mirror, 2 metal beds. Um, I used, like, towels as pillows. It's, like, just, like, a mat, like, this thick. That was yeah, it was uncomfortable, and you don't, like, have much clothes, you're given it was cold a lot. I wouldn't go back.
Yeah,
Definitely wouldn't go back.
I probably would try to avoid that if I were you. Yeah,
Yeah.
doesn't sound fun. Did you make any friends?
No, I mean, a lot of the girls that were in there would just be, like, 3 days. Like, most of them were, like, 3-day stints for, like, DUIs and stuff, so it was, like, a lot of in and out. I definitely don't, like, keep in touch with anybody from jail now, but
Yeah. Were the
yeah.
guards mean?
No, they were, like I mean, most of them were just, like, women, like, my age now, like, in the I would say, like, mid to late 20s, early 30s.
When you're on day 5, when you're on day 10, you're on day 14, you're pregnant, you feel sick. Were you ever scared? Did you wanna die? Were you angry? Like, where were you at?
Yeah, I was angry, and I would call my mom a lot. I guess I treated her horribly. I don't really remember it, but she said, like, she wishes that she just never answered the phone for me while I was in jail, but I was still calling that guy from Mississippi some. Because, like, initially the plan was that I was gonna get out of jail and fly back to Mississippi to be with him. I found out later that, he had been using while I was gone, so that's when I decided to go back with my parents, which was the greatest blessing in my life.
How did jail compare to the treatment centers and rehabs and detoxes you had been to?
Well, you can smoke cigarettes at rehabs and detoxes, so that was actually the hardest part. I mean, I would have given my left fucking arm for a cigarette while I was in jail. Pregnant or not, I didn't care. It was hard because you're just cold turkey. So you're not only fucking pregnant and sick, you're like cold turkey and nicotine. I had just been off like several days using, and then the part of like having unacceptance that I was there and wasn't going to get out.
Damn, yeah. I just can't even imagine. I mean, you didn't ever feel like killing yourself?
I don't think so, not while I was in jail. I mean, at points in my life, absolutely, but not while I was in jail, I don't think. I was just angry, wanted a cigarette, and I
Mm.
had to wait like a couple weeks till I could get commissary. Once you can get commissary, there's these chips, they're called, I think they're called the whole shebang. You can get them on Amazon, but they're like specially made for jail. And they're like, if you can imagine like a salt and vinegar, a barbecue, just like a combination, the best seasoning on a chip, they're good. They're like jail chips. I think they're like created for like the prison systems or something. I don't know why, but I've looked and you can get them on Amazon, but it's like $20 a bag for these chips.
Have you had them since?
No, no, but
Maybe
they're
oh
good.
my gosh, I wanna try some of those.
They're really good. I have a coworker at my normal job and he's been to jail. And he knows we've talked about it before and they're really good chips.
Like, everyone watching this is gonna go run and buy some of these jail chips off of Amazon. I'm about to.
They're really good.
Okay, so then you move back home with your parents, and you're pregnant, more pregnant now.
Hmm.
Now what's going on? You're living in a bed do you have your own bedroom? What's the situation like?
I had a bedroom at my parents' house. I really struggled when I first got there. I hadn't lived with my parents in like 8 years. And like the longest I had ever been like visiting with them was like maybe a week at a time. So it was hard. It was a hard adjustment. I definitely had some of those like very much acting out kind of. I would like freak out and scream over whatever it was. I don't know what would set me off, but like I would get super crazy kind of thing. And yeah, it took a little bit for me to grow out of that when I first moved in. And then I just got to where I was like looking for a job. going to meetings. Again, I didn't have my license for like 2.5 years, so my parents had to drive me to meetings, or I had to ride with like a girlfriend that I met. I got in with like a really solid group of women, which was not something that I'd ever done before, because before it was always about like, who's the hottest guy in this meeting? Okay, now I'm gonna go
Mhm.
like whatever. So I got like super in with a good like group of women who were like established in their sobriety, established in their friendships, and yeah, I kind of just let them like show me the way. And my dad and I, we joke about it. Like we would sit on the couch every night and watch House Hunters together and just like talk shit about, the different people who are looking for houses. And it was special because my life was so simple at that point. It was hard to find a job at first, but the job that I got is still the same company that I'm with today. And so it's like there's a lot of me that feels like very, very loyal because they were the first people to give me a chance. First time I had worked in like several years, and I've just continued moving up in the company, and it's just transitioning into that and then getting to the point where I'm like starting to like connect with the fact that I'm getting, that I'm pregnant, and then the nesting happens when, you want to start like getting all the baby stuff set up. And another big thing was I had my first daughter in December, mid-December, December 16th, and so I have this dog named Pig, and Pig has been my dog since I was a freshman in college. Through all the shit that I've been talking about, like, Pig has been with me. There were times where either, like, my parents would come get her and keep her, or my one of my ex-boyfriends had her for, like, a year. In October, after I guess I moved in with my parents in June of 2023, and then I finally was able to get Pig back October of 2023, and she took a flight from Phoenix to Philly by herself. And my parents and I drove to Philly, and it was like this dog had been with me through hell and back. I was always fighting for her to like, like she's a dog. Okay, well, like she's my fucking dog and I'm gonna do what I have to do to get her back. And I got her back so she could get like reacclimated and like understand that I was pregnant. And then she was there when I had Winnie and brought her home. And I cherish that time in my life, and it's only gone up, 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 up since there.
It's amazing that your parents were able to be so loving and welcoming you into their home
For
after you
sure.
had just gone through all of these rehabs, treatments, on the streets, jail. Were they just like open doors? What allowed it so that they were willing to love you and accept you still?
Well, first of all, I don't think my parents ever completely lost hope, and I think that they definitely weren't open arms. I mean, they were angry. My parents had a very hard time, like, accepting the pregnancy, my mom especially, like, even, like, several months after Winnie was first born. So, yeah, they were very angry, but at the end of the day, like, I pretty much had, like, one last opportunity, and we had never tried that before. Like, I had never tried to move back in with him, and also the circumstances were different, and I would just say in the past, like, year is when I feel like finally, like, they trust me, So it did take a lot of time. I mean, they're amazing people. I wouldn't be here without them, so.
And you were clean basically starting the second you left jail.
Got in jail.
Got into jail, right.
Yeah.
And what has kept you clean?
I mean, I would say, like, definitely my kids. I have worked very hard in my program of AA. I show up, I do the same things that I did when I first got sober, and I try to be of service. I try to reach out to new people. I still work with a sponsor. It's still very much a part of my life. It always will be. Finally having something that was bigger than myself that I wanted to do okay for and try, and I've just continued to slowly like gain self-respect back and confidence as who I am in who I am as a person. And it's not that it's been easy. For probably the first year there would be times where like I would still think that like using sounded attractive in certain ways, but like today it's just so far from my scope of reality. But that, I mean, that doesn't mean it's not ever possible. That's why I still keep up with my program. But I've gone through some pretty bad shit in the last 3 years. But it's not like in my toolbox anymore. It was the first thing that I went to for everything, but it is just no longer an option.
Did that just happen over time where you look back and you are like, wow, this is no longer the thing I reach for when you were wrapped in this world of it?
I think it did just happen over time. I don't know. I always say like that I didn't have like some burning bush moment for a spiritual experience, but that like when I really reflected back and was like, huh, wow, I haven't woke up and thought about getting high today. It was like, and wow, I haven't for the last like 10 days or whatever. That was like the biggest gift for me. And it did just happen over time. Cause even like I talk about like my experience of being a mom as being so monumental for me, but even when she was like first little, I was still like figuring out like who I was and who I was going to be. And while drugs and alcohol were not a part of it, there was still that like wanting to be bad and like knowing that I was, that that's who I always was. And so that's who I felt like I was made to be. But I don't know, the more I stayed clean, it's a lot easier to stay than it is to keep coming back, and the longer I've stayed, the more my identity has shifted away from my identity being fully wrapped up into the fact that I was an addict, but instead all of the other hats that I wear that are so much more important than that.
You amaze me because I know so many moms or women that have gotten pregnant while in active addiction or in active struggle, whatever it is, and having a child or being pregnant is not enough. Can you describe the feeling of being pregnant or when your daughter was born and looking at her that made it so that you were like, "I'm never picking up again"?
I have so much joy in the fact that I have two people who completely rely on me, and I'm so fixated on being the best mom that I can be for them. It's so much bigger than I can imagine, and I just like going through childbirth and I don't know, just watching someone grow, it's just like a God-given miracle, and I just never want to take it for granted. I'd never want to be someone that my kids one day, and I'll fuck them up one way or another, I'm sure, but I don't want to fuck them up that way. And I want to be reliable. I want to be safe. I want to be present. I want to be, worthy of being their mom. I have a lot of friends who still use or, struggle with that. And I don't understand, but that is just me. Like, I know it's not enough. If there was things that were enough for people to stay clean, lots more people would stay clean. Just for me, it is enough. And I have thoughts sometimes where I'm like, well, maybe when they're older, I won't have that same feeling because they won't be so reliant on me. And I asked my mom actually today, I said, Mom, as a mother, like, do you always see your kids like just how they are now? Because I worry that when they're like older, like I won't feel like so responsible for their emotions and like what they go through. And she said, No, I think you always do, but when they get older, you have less control, over what they experience. I think being a mother was enough for me, and it can be, but that's just my story. And I don't shame anybody who, goes through it differently because we all have different versions of what bottom looks like. And I thankfully hit mine before becoming a mom, before becoming a wife. And I'm very grateful for that.
I really appreciate you saying that becoming a mom and having daughters was part of the solution for me, but it's not for everyone and it's just for me because I think people make this mistake often in listening to other people's stories that their solution looks the same as someone else's solution and they miss the fact that none of our problems look the exact same either. So the solution is not always going to be the exact same. There are patterns and
Exactly.
similarities, for example, the 12-step program, but it's not a clear path, which makes this so complicated but also beautiful in a way because it speaks to each of our uniqueness. You said that a lot of your struggles started with what happened to you when you were on vacation and you were violated and hurt. And a lot of the emotion coming out of that was shame and guilt. Where are you with that now? And for someone that might be deep in the shame and the guilt like you once were, what would you tell them?
It's something that I don't know, I think I blocked it out in a lot of ways and for so long, and I don't know, it doesn't define me, and it's like none of this stuff does. None of this stuff, and I do have times where that, like, comes up where I struggle, but it's like, I'm so proud of the person that I am today. Everything happened the way that it was supposed to happen that has gotten me to the point where I am today, and while everything in my life is not perfect, I have so much insight, so much empathy, so much care, so much patience, so much gratitude, all of these things, mercy, that, like, each experience along the way has, like, given me shreds of that that I can take into my life, and, like, I'm only 28 years old. Like, there's so much time that I have to use these things, and yeah, so while, like, it sucks that I couldn't have handled things differently as a young girl, but it does make me hypersensitive about my daughters, though. Like, I fucking I don't like leaving them with anybody except my mom and dad and my husband, obviously, but,
You've got a
um
mama bear in there,
yes,
as you
but
should.
yeah, it's like I'm grateful. Everything is meant to be.
Well, you are a freaking warrior, Bella, and thank you for
Thank
being
you.
brave enough to share with me, for one, but then also knowing that other people are going to see this. If you can do it, my God, I hope someone listening to this is like, all right, I can give it a shot.
I know. I thank God every day that everything has happened because it is crazy and it is unbelievable and it's like, how the fuck did I get there? But, it was for a reason, and I'll know one day what that was. So, yeah,
For now,
thank
it's one
you.
day at a time. Yeah.
Yeah.